Hey, Brooke here. Imagine not knowing what time it is. Not approximately, not roughly, not even a vague sense of time. For most of human history, that was normal. And not just normal, completely unremarkable. But at some point, that changed. Humans stopped just experiencing time and started measuring it, labeling it, organizing their lives around it. And the strange part is once that happened, there was no going back. But if you do go back far enough, early humans didn't think about time the way you do now. There were no hours, no minutes, no schedules. Time wasn't something you tracked. It was something you felt. The day began when the sun rose, ended when it disappeared, and everything in between was guided by the environment. You woke up when it got light, rested when it got dark, ate when you were hungry, moved when you needed to, and stopped when it made sense to stop. There was no running late, there was no wasting time, and not even a concept of how to waste time. Which, to be fair, sounds pretty dang nice. Anthropologists sometimes describe this as event-based time, a way of experiencing the world where actions are tied to events rather than fixed units. Instead of saying we'll meet at 3, it's more like we'll meet when the sun is above the trees. Time wasn't something you externally checked. It was something embedded into what you were already doing. And for a long time, that was perfectly fine. But as human societies became more complex, something started to shift. People began farming, settling, building communities that required coordination. And coordination requires something very specific: consistency. You can't plant crops effectively if you don't have a sense of seasons. You can't organize groups of people if everyone is operating on their own internal sense of later. So humans started paying closer attention, not just to time itself, but to the patterns within it. One of the earliest ways of tracking time came from observing the sky, the movement of the sun, the phases of the moon, the changing of the seasons. Ancient civilizations like Egyptians developed sundials, simple devices that used shadows to estimate the time of the day. In ancient China, time was sometimes measured using incense. Specially designed incense would burn at a predictable rate, often with markings or embedded materials that would release a scent or sound at certain intervals, kind of like an ancient alarm clock. But even these early tools represent something important, a shift from experiencing time to trying to control it. And that shift didn't just change how people organized their days, it changed how they thought. Psychologists often refer to something called temporal perception, the way the brain experiences and interprets time. Before clocks, this perception was flexible. A long day felt long because of what happened in it, not because of how many hours passed. You've probably felt this. How work feels like an eternity, but the free time you get when you get home feels like 5 minutes. Your internal sense of time doesn't always match the clock. And before clocks existed, that mismatch didn't matter because there was nothing to compare it to. Early humans were operating without that reference point. No ticking clock, no invisible pressure that's moving everything forward. Just a continuous flow of experience. But as time went on, pun intended, and time precision was needed, mechanical clocks began appearing in medieval Europe, which allowed time to be divided more consistently. But even once mechanical clocks existed, most people didn't actually have direct access to them. In many parts of medieval Europe, time was communicated through church bells. Bells would ring at certain intervals throughout the day, marking moments for prayer, work, or rest. Instead of looking at a clock, you listened for it, which meant your sense of time wasn't individual. It was shared. But eventually, hours became standardized, minutes were introduced, and life started to become more structured. And this is where things get interesting, because once time becomes something you can measure precisely, it becomes something you can optimize. Work starts at a specific time, ends at a specific time, and productivity becomes tied to how much you can do within a certain number of hours. Time becomes something you can save, spend, or waste, which is a strange way to think about something that used to just happen organically. Sociologists often describe this shift as clock time versus natural time. Clock time is rigid, segmented, and external, while natural time is fluid, contextual, and internal. And modern life is almost entirely built around clock time, which means a lot of your day isn't guided by how things feel, but by what the clock says. And that has consequences, because your brain didn't evolve in a world of precise timestamps and scheduled blocks. It evolved in a world where time was tied to events, environments, and needs. So now you're constantly balancing two systems, your internal sense of time and the external structure imposed on it. This might explain why time feels so strange. While some moments stretch out forever, while others disappear instantly. Why time seems to go by faster as you get older. Your brain is still operating on something closer to natural time. It's just been placed inside a system that doesn't. A system that shapes everything. How you plan your day, how you measure success, even how you think about your life as a whole. Instead of experiencing life as a continuous flow, it becomes something divided into segments. Days, weeks, years, milestones, deadlines. You don't just live anymore, you schedule. You become aware of how much time you have left and what you've done with it. Which raises a slightly uncomfortable question. Did clocks help us organize time, or did it change how we experience it entirely? Because before clocks, time wasn't something you managed. It was something you moved through. And now, it's something you're constantly aware of and sometimes stressing about for no reason, which is interesting. Because time itself didn't change. The sun still rises, the seasons still shift, and the world moves at the same pace it always has, kind of. The only thing that changed was how we think about it. And the existential thing is that you can't really go back to not knowing what time is. Even if you try to ignore it, the structure is still there, shaping how everything fits together. Clocks gave us a new way of experiencing reality. Maybe for the better, but maybe not. And maybe that's why this question feels a little strange, because removing clocks isn't about just removing a tool, it's about removing an entire framework. The framework of the world that feels so normal that you don't even really think about it or question it. And it's wild to think that for most of human history, clocks didn't exist. People lived, moved, and experienced time without ever needing to measure it. They simply just existed within it. Anyway, if you've made it this far, I'm sure you've checked the clock at least once during this video. Liked what your weird brain just learned? Hit subscribe. If not, that's okay. I'll give you more time to think about it.